Michael Skipper of the Nashville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's exciting to be here with you for the 6th straight year. I want to thank Bridget Jones and the directors of Cumberland Region Tomorrow for the continued partnership with our organization at the NPO. And I also want to thank, because I don't do this enough, our staff at the NPO and the staff of CRT for all the work they put into making these events a success. I like the new location. I think the only thing I'm missing is Deb Varallo hanging off the balconies, taking photographs. And I think otherwise, though, it's an upgrade. So thank you, Bridget, for all the work that you put into this. I know I only have a few minutes with you today, so I think I'll leave it to you to decide this, but I typically travel with 80 to 120 slides. And if you're interested in seeing those slides today, just stand up, maybe work your way towards the back of the room. I think I'm going to skip over them and just kind of get to the point. I'm well aware of the cocktail reception that follows after the next few items on the agenda. So what I like to do is just sort of before I get into talking about some of the things that are going on in Middle Tennessee with respect to transportation and in particular transit initiatives, I want to reflect on some of the accomplishments that we've all shared in together that really date back to the first regional summit back in 2008. So since then, in 2009, the state legislature passed and the governor, then Governor Bredesen, signed into law enabling legislation for Tennessee metro areas to create regional transportation authorities at the local level to convene communities across the metropolitan area to plan for and implement a regional transit system. Also in 2009, after a trip with the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce to the Denver metropolitan area, we created the political force to drive that regional transit plan forward in the Middle Tennessee Mayor's Caucus. We also created the business sector side of the advocacy for regional transit through the creation of the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee. In 2010, we saw a major shift in regional transportation public policy when the board of the Nashville Area NPO, which is comprised of city and county mayors across Middle Tennessee, adopted the 2035 Regional Transportation Plan that positioned transit, mass transit, and the development of walkable towns and neighborhoods as the leading transportation strategy for Middle Tennessee after decades and decades of highway-oriented investments that has led to some of the problems that we're now trying to deal with as we prepare for more than 1 million more people over the next couple of decades. In 2012, the RTA of Middle Tennessee reconstituted itself to take advantage of the enabling legislation that was passed and signed into the law back in 2009, and their first action, first order of business was to expand their footprint to include Clarksville and Montgomery County. Last year, the NPO board approved a new regional transportation improvement program. So in addition to the long-range plan that the NPO pulls together on behalf of the region, we also manage the region's work program where we put money to work in your own communities. We approved the new work program last year. It's about $1 billion worth of investments into roads and bridges and transit and walking and bicycling facilities across Middle Tennessee. And there were some very significant projects in that work program that were a product of the collaboration between communities in Middle Tennessee that have made transit a top priority. Included in that work program was funding for the Hamilton Springs Transit Ordinance Development Station along the commuter rail line to Lebanon, between Nashville and Lebanon. Also included was the initial funding for the construction of the AMP, and that was money that's shared by this region that we felt should be placed on that project here locally within Nashville-Davidson County. And then only a few months ago, our NPO Executive Board voted to expand the footprint of the NPO to include 7 counties in Middle Tennessee from the 5 that it had been, with the addition of Robertson and Murray counties to more formally link the regional plans that we do, that we put together every few years to the programming and the funding decisions that ultimately are responsible for implementing those plans. Today, we've got a couple of, we're on the brink of even more progress. RTA and local transit agencies across the region are beginning to either develop the first ever or refine their existing master plans that will translate the regional vision for transit, that's part of our comprehensive strategy for transportation in Middle Tennessee, into priority project lists that have schedules and budgets associated with them. This will be, this is a sort of a pivotal moment in our history as it relates to transit as we begin to take this vision that's behind me and turn it into a set of projects that ultimately we will forge forward with in terms of funding. Also, local communities, including Nashville through Nashville Next, are updating and reforming their local comprehensive plans and their land use policies and zoning ordinances to enable the private market that, that is ready and willing to begin to invest in infill and mixed-use development within communities that ultimately will be coupled with our new way of investing in transportation to support livability into the future. But significant challenges remain, as you heard Commissioner Schroer mention earlier, at the federal level with respect to funding. The federal legislation that authorizes the gas tax that you pay at the pump, that 18.4 cents a gallon, and the federal legislation that authorizes the expenditure of that gas tax through the Highway Trust Fund is set to expire in September. It'll go bankrupt before then. It's gone bankrupt before. And the way we fix the problem is we transfer money out of the Treasury of the U.S. government to the Highway Trust Fund, which has largely been a dedicated revenue stream for transportation over its history. And that is really why this is a political issue, that sort of inaction of Congress to deal with the revenue situation with the Highway Trust Fund has led to the political debate over whether or not we should make that trust fund whole through general fund transfers. It's maybe even worse than is stated. In fact, the current obligations are so far outpacing the receipts in the Highway Trust Fund that we basically have to zero out all of 2015 and half of 2016 just to meet the current obligations, those projects that are already underway throughout our communities in America. So action is needed, and I urge you all to help us with that. Mayors from across Middle Tennessee have come together to urge Congress to pass a long-term transportation bill that not only stabilizes the Highway Trust Fund, but grows the revenue source to keep up with the increasing maintenance costs and to prepare for new growth through economic development in America. And to also allow people like you in this room and the folks back home that you represent to be a bigger player in ultimately making decisions about how those dollars are going to be used here in Middle Tennessee. So I'll leave you with this. As an MPO, we're about to update that regional transportation plan this year, and most of my slides relate to the growth and development forecast, the traffic forecast that we see coming our way that will help begin that conversation. But consider the million more people by 2035. We'll be actually over 3 million people by the year 2040. That would make us bigger than the Denver region is today, approaching the size of the Seattle metropolitan area. And so we're changing, and that's something that we've got to take into consideration. And as a result of that growth, for example, our traffic forecasts, the maps are scary. I think what's even more scary is the fact that we're projecting the amount of time that you're spending in your car to increase by 113% between now and 2040. That's more than doubling of the amount of time you spend in your car today. And that's even with you not driving any additional distances. That's just a direct result of a 26% reduction on our area roadways over that period of time. And that's even with $6 billion worth of investments that are identified in our long-range transportation plan, the fiscally constrained plan that was adopted back in 2010. So as we move to create the 2040 plan that will look at the years 2015 through 2040, we need to reconsider our transportation portfolio so we're not left with a future that is that's congested without alternatives to get around. As we do that, I just encourage you to do a few things. One is think beyond the car. Consider the way that transportation public policy has shaped the community around us today, some for the better, some for the worse. And allow that to give you hope that if we were to make different decisions about how we're investing in transportation, that we could ultimately affect the livability in Middle Tennessee for the positive. Also, this will ultimately come down to funding, and I encourage you not to let the cynicism and the fear of a few politicians overshadow the power that you all have, the power of 10, to make the future that you see for yourself, even if you are a politician. So with that, thank you for having me again with you this year, and I'll turn it over to Rick.